What's going on everybody, Umbrin here, and in this video I'm going to show you a few settings, tips, and tricks to help you dive harder. When it comes to settings, it really depends on your preference. I would recommend spending a couple minutes looking at them and playing around if you haven't taken the time to do that. That being said, here's a couple settings changes that have a more substantial effect on success. You can change the reticle to be always visible, you can rebind the stratagem keys from WASD to arrow keys, allowing you to run while calling in supports. If you have mouse buttons, I highly recommend you rebind them to grenades, stims, and most importantly, diving. Moving on to a few of the more basic tips. Most people know these by now, but I think they're worth mentioning for the newer Helldivers watching. You can hold R to customize your weapon, allowing you to change fire rate, flashlight settings, or scope settings depending on the weapon. You can hold X to drop gear and samples. Use Q to mark and respond. Hold Q to access the communications wheel. And, for the love of God, make sure you're throwing reinforcement beacons away from the horde. One of the most important things to master in this game is posture management. What I mean by that is knowing when to run, when to crouch, and when to crawl. Crouching not only reduces recoil, but also decreases your detection range and explosive damage. Going prone further amplifies these benefits. In addition to that, crouching and going prone also increases your stamina regen by 25% and 50% respectively. Choosing the right moments to crouch or go prone can drastically increase your chances of success, especially at the higher difficulties. Stealth is very basic in this game, but is a necessity at higher levels of difficulty. Posture management and line of sight are key here. I have a short video that explains the basics of stealth, so I won't go into the nuances here. The main thing is, don't engage unless you can kill everything quickly, or you're already under attack. You can straight up extract without firing a shot if you're sneaky enough. Some enemies can detect you even if you're hiding though. Those would be the stalkers for the terminids and the mortars for the automatons. Taking those two out is always a super high priority objective in my opinion. Speaking of objectives, that brings me to the most important part of winning missions: remaining objective focused. Don't fight for nothing. Once the objective is complete, move on and don't engage every enemy you see. If you're getting overwhelmed and your stuff is on cooldown, don't be afraid to run away. Most missions don't require you to actually defend anything, so if it's getting too crazy, pull back, create some distance, and circle around. Don't be afraid to split up. I'd recommend teams of 2, that way if someone dies, the other person can revive them. Of course, it's a little bit harder to pull off when playing with strangers, but I've seen it done. If you have teammates and you see someone pulling enemy attention, make sure you're completing the objective. Main thing is, remain adaptable and pay attention to what your team's doing. Plan your loadout based on the mission. This doesn't matter as much on the easier difficulties, but picking the right stratagems for the job will definitely help, like sentries on extermination missions or airstrikes and grenade launchers for blitz missions. A lot of weapons and stratagems in this game are pretty viable as long as you have a solution for every enemy type and situation. Like if you bring a stalwart or a heavy MG to deal with smaller enemies, make sure you have some kind of airstrike or orbitals for heavies. There's tons of combinations that work really well, but that's just another thing that comes down to personal preference. A couple of tips for playing against bugs I could throw out would be, make sure to maintain your distance, check your pathing, and try to keep an escape route in mind. Light armor makes bugs a lot easier in my opinion. For bots, you really just have to watch your sight lines and stick to cover. Most of them move slower, but the guns make them way more difficult. The Democracy Protects passive is great against these guys, but honestly, I still prefer running light armor for the speed. You can really min-max with ideal armor stats, passives are the best stratagems, but like I said earlier, most things are pretty viable and it's all just about having fun. If you're not having any fun, then there's no point in even playing the game. There's a lot of other little tips and tricks that I didn't include because I just wanted to cover the most important points and I didn't want the video to be like 15 minutes long. That being said, what are some tips and tricks not included in this video that really helped you? Leave a comment below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.
Come on, man.
Thanks for watching everybody, and we'll see you next time.